For many, at a distance, the city of Jerusalem is a sacred place, a place where the ideals of religion come together in the hope of Abraham. For some, it's a place of pilgrimage. For others, it's a place of walls and barriers. There are shadows on the walls of this city compacted together that few tourists ever get to see. The shooter was named Al-Din Bahazin. He was part of the Abu Mesa gang. According to the Jerusalem police, it was the most dangerous terrorist gang of that generation. 25 members from East Jerusalem were involved. The MO was quite simple. A bullet to the head. The shooter would take the gun and dispose of it, telling the next person in his cell group in the hierarchy where he disposed of the gun. The 9mm Beretta had shot 4 bullets in an attempted assassination effective on 3 citizens. Paul was the 4th and the final bullet. 2 days later, Paul's assassin was arrested with the rest of the Abu Mesa gang. The assassin confessed that he picked an open spot in the middle of the day for the execution. The MO was very simple. Each assassin was given a target, and their means of execution was left to them. The location was left to them, and even the target itself was left to the individual assassin. By using the weapon and changing hands between each individual shooter, it set off the Jerusalem police, who were unable to really identify a single MO. Al-Din received a life imprisonment. It was the 4th bullet from the weapon. The 3 previous assassinations had occurred inside the city of Jerusalem. The first was an Israeli businesswoman. The second was an American Jewish tourist. And the third was a German tourist on the Via della Rosa. Paul was the 4th and final target. There's a question as to the origin of the action that was taken. It was supported by Syria. That wasn't a question or a debate. But was it an organized assassination to bring a reprisal against the United States government, Great Britain, Germany, and Israel for the bombing of Gaddafi's residence? Or was it just an ad hoc shooting? A few days after Paul died, the assassin was apprehended. I had the real sense of the need to proclaim forgiveness, as much for my own soul, God's will, but the need to publicly proclaim forgiveness. In that process, I passed out the 2-page document about who Paul was. That his blood did cry out, "Father, forgive them." I published it around Damascus Gate. I had a meeting with Reverend White, who was the curator of the Garden Tomb at the time. And in that process, you know, when you're hit to that magnitude, you really begin to think and pray. I had a prophetic word about the coming of the Intifada, a 7-year period where peace would be taken from the city. I even had a word about the peace accords coming from Norway, from Oslo, and that was in 1986. And it seemed to produce a kind of closure to some degree. You know, there was a prophetic voice there. There was the forgiveness proclaimed. Our movement, you know, to understand where we were at, we had brought 30 churches together from different parts of the world to come and do a Joel 2:2 fast to prevent Israel from coming into the shame of what took place with the Intifada. And we didn't know it at the time, what we were praying for, but we had a sense of that. So in the midst of that, Paul's assassination really cut off, you know, the ministry. Everybody kind of scattered to the 4 winds. it was a very trying time, but the focus was so given to the need of proclaiming the forgiveness that we, the fact that everybody left the conference, if you will, without saying goodbye was okay. So after we left Israel, I took a 6-month sabbatical on the East Coast with my partner Richard Duffy, and then I returned to my father's house and began to work for him in the family company, handling many of the investments that he had. At that point, I pretty much compartmentalized the situation with Paul, and the forgiveness had been done. There had been a prophetic witness established, and that was sufficient. Yet in my heart, there felt like there was something empty and missing in the process there. And it wasn't so much the meaning of Paul's life, which had its own course, but later I discovered it was really the issue of my own pain. I didn't like being a victim. I didn't like having something taken from me without any cause, without any reason. And in that process, I ended up joining the United States military. I became a tank commander for an M60A3 tank, which was the main battle tank for Israel. And I really didn't have any love for Jerusalem or for Israel, for the Middle East, as a matter of fact. And I just wanted to be able to have a sense that I wasn't going to be made a victim again. Forgiveness had been there, but I needed a theology to be able to figure out, yes, I can turn my cheek. Yes, you can insult me. You can even insult my mother. And I'm not going to fight you. But if you come to harm what is mine, I will meet you. And I won't do that in Jesus' name. I'll do it in my own name, or I'll do it in the name of my country, or I will do it in the name of my state. And mankind has a right to defend itself against aggression. But that in and of itself was not adequate, and I could not understand how Islam could promote such actions as these young boys being involved with terrorist activity. So I ended up going to seminary and studying Islamics, studying cultural anthropology. I went to Fuller. So what I began to understand is I wanted to make sense of my own pain. Eventually, God brought me to a place where He could use me to maybe bring some light into the situation, to bring some hope into the situation. It was at this spot in 2002 that I was basically able to say goodbye to Paul's memory, which I had held in my heart, and complete the rest of that story as we continue.